Exclusive nightclubs in Europe allow patrons to run a bar tab, their credit card number accessed through the chip embedded in the back of their arm.
To continue, from this point forward, microchips will become progressively smaller, less invasive and easier to deploy. Thus, any realistic barrier to the wholesale chipping of Western citizens is not technological but cultural. It relies upon the visceral reaction against the prospect of being personally marked as one component in a massive human inventory. Today we might strongly hold such beliefs, but sensibilities can, and probably will, change. How this remarkable attitudinal transformation is likely to occur is clear to anyone who has paid attention to privacy issues over the past quarter century. There will be no 3 a.m. knock on the door by stormtroopers coming to force implants into our bodies. The process will be more subtle and cumulative, couched in the unassailable language of progress and social betterment.
So, should we say no? We don't want that. We want to stay as we are, as humans. We don't want to go anymore. That's not something humans have done in the past. Humans have gone along with progress
and mimicking many of the processes that have contributed to the expansion of closed-circuit television cameras and the corporate market in personal data. A series of tried and tested strategies will be marshaled to familiarize citizens with the technology. These will be coupled with efforts to pressure tainted social groups and entice the remainder of the population into being chipped. This, then, is how the next generation will come to be microchipped. It starts in distant countries. Having tested technology on guinea pigs, both human and animal, your first widespread use of human implanting will occur in nations at the periphery of the Western world. Such developments are important in their own right, but their intentional significance pertains to how they familiarize a global audience with the technology and habituate them to the idea that chipping represents a potential future. An increasing array of hypothetical chipping scenarios will also be depicted in entertainment media, furthering the familiarization process. That's already happening. In the West, chips will first be implanted in members of stigmatized groups. Pedophiles are the leading candidates for this distinction, although it could start with terrorists, drug dealers, or whatever happens to be that year's most vilified criminals. Short-lived promises will be made that the technology will only be used on the worst of the worst. In fact, the wholesale chipping of incarcerated individuals will quickly ensue, encompassing people on probation and on parole. Even accused individuals will be tagged, a measure justified on the grounds that it would stop them from fleeing justice. Many prisoners will welcome this development, since only chipped inmates will be eligible for parole, weekend release, or community sentences. From the prison system will emerge an evocative vocabulary distinguishing chippers from non-chippers. Although the chips will be justified as a way to reduce fraud and other crimes, criminals will almost immediately develop techniques to simulate other people's chip codes and manipulate their data.
Chips themselves don't contain any personal information, but they do contain a key to information. Unencrypted information that Jonathan Westhughes, a software developer in Canada, says he found relatively easy to copy, meaning he could become Sean Darks in the eyes of a machine if he wanted to.
The comparatively small size of the incarcerated population, however, means that prisons would simply be a brief stopover on a longer voyage. Commercial success is contingent on making serious inroads into tagging the larger population of law-abiding citizens. Other stigmatized groups will therefore be targeted. This will undoubtedly entail monitoring welfare recipients, a move justified to reduce fraud, enhance efficiency, and ensure that the poor do not receive undeserved benefits. Once e-commerce is sufficiently advanced, welfare recipients will receive their benefits as electronic vouchers stored on their microchips, a policy that will be tinged with a sense of righteousness as it will help ensure that clients can only purchase government-approved goods from select merchants, reducing the always disconcerting prospect that poor people might use their limited funds to purchase alcohol and tobacco. Civil libertarians will try to foster debate on these developments. Their attempts to prohibit chipping will be handicapped by the inherent difficulty in animating public sympathy for criminals and welfare recipients, groups that many citizens are only too happy to see subjected to tighter regulation. Indeed, the lesser public concern for such groups is an inherent part of the unarticulated rationale for why coerced chipping will be disproportionately directed at the stigmatized. The official privacy arm of the government will now take up the issue. Mandated to determine the legality of such initiatives, privacy commissioners and Senate committees will produce a forest of reports presented at an archipelago of international conferences. Hampered by lengthy research and publication timelines, their findings will be delivered along the widespread adoption of chipping, after the widespread adoption of chipping is effectively a fait accompli. The research conclusions on the effectiveness of such technologies will be mixed and open to interpretation. Officials will vociferously reassure the chipping industry that they do not oppose chipping itself, which has fast become a growing commercial sector. Instead, they are simply seeking to ensure that the technology is used fairly and that the data on the chips is not misused. New policies will be drafted. What might Hitler, Mao, or Milosevic have accomplished if their citizens were chipped, coded, and remotely monitored? Now, this is the Star. The Toronto Star generally takes the place of Left Wing. That's their job, is to pretend they're Left Wing. And the Sun used to always be right wing. So the Stars and the Sun, they didn't have one called the Moon, but I'm sure it's there somewhere. And so to this list we could add Stalin and Lenin as well, who had millions killed, and every other big hero of left-wing and right-wing sides, right back down to the French Revolution and maybe even the English Revolution, and all the revolutions down through history. Employers will start to expect implants as a condition of getting a job. The US military will lead the way, requiring chips for all soldiers as a means to enhance battlefield command and control, and to identify human remains. From cooks to commandos, every one of the more than 1 million US military personnel will see microchips replace their dog tags. That's interesting, dog tags. The dogs of war, you see, this is the old Orion philosophy. The dog star follows Orion the hunter, and the dog star Sirius is the eye of the dog. And the dogs of war, that's the soldier's job. So they're turning from dogs to guinea pigs. So they're going from dogs to pigs. I don't know if that's evolution or devolution, I'm not quite certain.